Hello, all my beautiful people. It's time for another fun episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. And for my video watchers, you're seeing something that you usually don't get to see. And at this very moment, I am doing this over Zoom with my co-host, Nick. Nick,
I'm
how are
I'm
you
growing up.
doing?
I'm growing up, man. Look at us. I'm getting my own setup here. I live in a blurry room.
Yeah.
That's why the black background is blurred for all you video people. But if you're just an audio person, you're like, what are you talking about? I don't see anything. Exactly.
Yeah. So we're doing something a little different, trying
Like,
to bring more and more into what we're doing here. So for my audio people, it's still kind of the same for you. You're used to hearing me and Nick talk here at the beginning and talk at the end, but we're going to be doing something a little different. And we're going to have an opener like this right here and a closer at the end for the video version as well. So you get to see our reactions as we're doing it on that too. So
yeah,
I'm very
I'm gonna
excited.
get set. I'm gonna get set up at home better. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm gonna get set up at home better where I have cool background. There won't be 100 Power Rangers toys like you have, but it's gonna be something.
I imagine it might have something to do with like comic books,
Oh my
maybe.
God. You're like a genius.
It's like I know you or something.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
So,
you got an exciting episode today for me? What you got? What you got?
so actually, today's episode was a ton of fun to record, and it is with Josh Moore. He is the writer of a very in-depth book about Power Rangers, and not just Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but he kind of goes through the whole 30 years. And he's got interviews with all these different people, and all this research that he's done. And me and him just kind of geeked out in this episode. We kind of just talked about the book, which you definitely should get a copy of. It's an amazing book. I've really enjoyed it. And Nick, I think you've got to read some of it too. And I think you've enjoyed what you've got to read.
You
So,
spoiled it. I was gonna wait to the end. I was gonna tell you right before you went. I was gonna like, all right, I'm gonna read the book the entire time that you're doing the interview. But then you
uh,
ruined it. Yes,
I
I've read
ruined
some
it.
of it.
Yeah.
What's the book called? Just for the people who are like, what book?
It is called Morphenomenal: How the Power Rangers Conquered the World.
Good.
So,
It's a good title. It's a
it
good
is a
title.
good title.
I've read some of it, which was a digital copy that we got sent,
Right.
like it was a couple months ago now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think that was
yeah.
like in February or something is when we got
Oh
that.
geez, dear God, that's more than a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read some of that. Of course, I read a lot. I really want to read it digital or not digitally, physically.
Uh-huh.
So I haven't read too much of it. I
Right.
read enough to get like a good sense of it, and if I want to feel like, because don't know anything else he has written or
Right.
and so I was like kind of, testing the waters since we did get a advanced review copy of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. But then when I started reading it, I said, yeah, I'm gonna have to get this physically because this is good. This is good.
It is. It is. And the cool thing is you can pretty much buy it wherever they sell books. They've got it
Yeah.
on Amazon, they've got it on barnesandnoble.com, a bunch of different places. So, yeah, this episode's going to be a lot of fun. I enjoyed recording this. Me and you, though, after this, we have a lot to talk about
Ooh,
after the
let's
recording.
not let's let the spiciness happen afterwards. And
Yeah.
we'll throw some book talk in there too, because we're
Sounds
gonna do
good.
the first Nick talks about other people's stuff segment.
Yeah. So,
We gotta get some music for that too.
we do. We'll come up with something. Uh,
Excellent.
but yeah, so if you guys are as excited as we are, then let's get this show on the road.
If you give a dad a podcast, then what else would you even want to listen to? It's old news if you give a dad.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming back to the show. My name is Jared. I am the host here at If You Give a Dad a Podcast. I'm really excited to talk to my guest tonight. It's one that I've been working on trying to get on here for a minute. We had some setbacks, but we are finally here now. And I actually found him in a Facebook ad for his book that he has. And I was like, oh my God, I have to talk to this guy. And he is the author of Morphenomenal: How the Power Rangers Conquered the World. We're just going to kind of geek out here tonight. And I am talking to Joshua Moore. Man, how are you doing?
I'm great. I knew that you'd encountered me through the post. I didn't realize you found it as an ad, and that means, I mean, this is like clearly a top five thing that's ever happened in my life that resulted from an ad. So
Well, I mean, my Facebook is pretty specific. It knows what I like. So it showed that, and I was like, oh my god, I need to read this book. I need to talk to this guy. So I was very. I think I'm right there with you when I said is when you said that it was probably one of the top things that's ever happened with an ad.
it's scary what Facebook. I mean, that's why, I've spent, a few $100s of my own money on Facebook ads to promote the book. And
Yeah,
Facebook's, man, it's good. As bad as it has been in a lot of ways for society, I would
yeah,
maybe think and
yeah.
argue. It's a great advertising platform because, if you've checked a box, there's a good chance that things will find you.
Well, and so with doing the show, I've been able to find the backside of that, like what you're talking about. When you're creating the ad, and it's like, oh, well, what kind of people are you looking for?
Mhm.
And there's just tons of boxes that you can check there. And then I found out you can go and look and see what boxes they've checked for you to see what
Mhm.
kind of stuff you like, and you can kind of change that up too. So yeah, we all know Facebook listens to what we're doing
Mhm.
all the time. So but it was really interesting to see that side of it whenever I started doing this.
Yeah, my day job, I work in healthcare marketing, and for a local hospital here where I live in Kentucky. And I learned a lot about it from that, honestly. So it was like one thing when I was working on the book, I knew going in I would want to, set aside some money and do some promotion, especially in the lead up to the, right before the release. And
Right.
it it's wild. It really is wild how much you can do, and in terms of, I say targeting, it's more like you can list it out by interests and
Yeah.
stuff. It's like it's not like direct targeting, but like,
Right.
if you've ever mentioned Power Rangers on your profile, or you associated yourself with Power Rangers on your profile,
Yeah.
my there's a good chance my ads at least think that they can find you. So
Well, a lot of this behind me came from Amazon. So Facebook's got me down pat. Amazon does too. All that. They know exactly what I'm looking for.
it's a wonderful collection there. I think I have most of these things that you've got on display. I know, is that the Legacy Dragon Dagger or is that the Lightning Collection Dragon Dagger?
That's the Lightning Collection one. Yeah.
Okay, I
I
don't have
wish.
that.
Yeah.
Uh, I have the Legacy.
Okay.
But it's funny, a funny story about that. I have the box for the light or for the Lightning Collection dagger because a
Really.
buddy, one of my buddies, I shout him out in the acknowledgments in the book. He's a good friend I met through the fandom. Like we met, actually the first time we met was at Power Morphicon 2018 in person. Like
Nice.
that's like we talked a lot before, and he lives in Kentucky. Like he lives in Kentucky, but we somehow didn't meet. We met and first met each other in person in California.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, and he didn't want the box, and we were just talking about random. Like, just mail it to me or something. And so I have, for some reason, it's like one of the weirder things in my collection is that Lightning Collection box for that Dragon Dagger.
Well, there are some funny ones. So this isn't Power Rangers, but I know there have been a few people who wanted a John Cena case
Oh
and just
yeah,
just the
yeah.
box because so it hey, some people need the stuff. And I have actually seen on some of the groups like the Lightning Collection groups on Facebook where they're just selling the boxes because
Mm,
they take everything out and
yeah.
display them. I'm not that guy. I'm the one. It took a lot for me to take those out of the box and put them on display. I still have the boxes over there, but as you can see, all the toys and stuff that the figures, they're still in their box and they've never been taken
Mm.
out. So I don't know. I'm just I like having them in there. Um, it's funny though, talking about the toys. There's somebody that I'm pretty sure as well, and they're friends of mine. And they said that they were going to be talking to you here soon, and that's the guys over at Zero to Hero
Mm.
podcast.
Yeah, they recently we connected. I would say I actually probably know you better for sure than them. So I
Okay,
haven't got to talk to them too much yet, but
yeah,
I'm really excited about that. And obviously I'm excited about this too. Anytime to talk about Power Rangers,
Absolutely.
the people around Power Rangers, the fandom, the just everything that it does. Super Sentai,
Yeah.
I'm not as much into the Super Sentai as some people, but I do follow or keep up with a little bit. I mean, there's some cool stuff going
Right.
on there. I love it all, man. It's I've been into this show since I was before since I can remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's something. It's never not fun to talk Power Rangers.
So they are the guys that kind of brought me back into it. So
Mm.
that's the reason why I bring them up and I thank them so much. A lot of these toys and stuff, a lot of the Funkos that I have is from Billy from Zero to Hero. He's
Oh,
sent
cool.
me some, and so he's been a really cool friend to have, and he's gonna hate that I'm talking good about him. So this
So,
this is funny.
so it's possible that you've talked about this on the show before. So, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
spin this around. I'm the interviewee is going to become the interviewer here for a second.
Oh, okay.
What was so what was your like you would if so they kind of got you back into it. What was your like getting back into it moment, like your history with getting into Power Rangers and then
So
coming back into it?
I had started the show here, and I was kind of all over the place, talking to wrestlers, all different kinds of people. But I always loved stuff like that. And I was part of a podcast group, and there was a guy on there that said, "Hey, I think you would enjoy these people on this Discord page called Zero to Hero." And so that's how I got mixed in with them. Well, then I actually picked up a comic book, the
Mm,
Shattered Grid comic
okay,
book,
yeah.
and it's a sad story, and I've told it on the show before, but um, the one that I picked up and read was the one with Tommy's funeral in
Mm.
Shattered Grid, and then I woke up the next morning and he had actually passed away. Like,
Oh man.
and so I put it away, and I was like, I can't for a little while, and I didn't pick him back up for a minute, and then we started talking about toys, Zero to Hero and I did, and that kind of got me back in was the toys, finding something to collect,
Hmm.
is kind of what brought me back in, and then I started watching more of it. I stopped probably Wild Force was probably the last one that
Hmm.
I watched consistently, and so then I came back into it, and now I'm rewatching a whole bunch of them. I've had different people from the show on this show now, and it's just been an amazing thing that I've been able to do. But yeah, the comics and then those guys are probably the ones that brought me back into it. And it wasn't the show; it was the toys and the
Yeah.
comics.
I love that though, because I mean I hate, that the coincidental
Right?
timing of all
Yeah.
that. That's awful sad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the comics are a great like re-entry point, I think, for people that and I think will continue to be that especially that first run, that
Right.
first issue like 25 issue run with Shattered Grid at
Yeah.
the number one, like that whole first 2 years is what Boom Studios did is really cool. And they've done a lot of cool stuff since then,
Right.
and to especially expand the universe and kind of get a little wacky with stuff.
Yeah.
And then the toys though, like I was kind of the same way. I kept I never stopped following the show. Now there were points where you brought up watching Wild Force consistently. I think around Mystic Force was where I just wasn't able to watch it as consistently. It wasn't that I
Yeah.
didn't want to, it was more like the way that it started airing and like cable, like you're moving, like we moved a lot around that time of my life. So I was like
Yeah.
in and out of houses that had cable and didn't have cable.
Right.
Um, and then by the time RPM came around, we were in an area where it was like, if it did air, it was airing at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh gosh.
And so I just ended up just I learned how to I moved to college at some point during that season and
Yeah.
to here in Lexington, Kentucky, where I live now. And I'm from a rural area, by the way. Anybody listening, you can probably hear it in my voice. Um, and so I had a high speed internet, so I'm torrenting. I learned how to torrent, and so
Yep.
I watched all of RPM illegally, basically after that. And but the toys were a consistent thing. And like so it was funny at the time. By the time that I sort of couldn't watch the show as much because I was in and out of it, I started collecting the toys again. So I around middle school, um, I gave up my toys. Or maybe like into like late elementary school, I was like, I still like the show, but I was like, I'm not playing with these as much. You know, Mom, you can sell me a yard sale. Stupidest thing I did.
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't have everything, I didn't have like this immaculate collection, but I had some cool stuff that
right.
I would love to have now.
Yeah,
And now, around the time, but then by the time I was in high school and getting some money and stuff, I was like, well, I'm gonna get back into buying Power Ranger toys, and so I was collecting full lines of action figures from shows that I could barely watch. It was just that. So, and then that was it. I never stopped. So if I was 15, 16 around that time, collecting Mystic Force, Operation Overdrive, Jungle Fury. I didn't watch a
okay.
single episode. I'd never had seen an episode of Jungle Fury until like 4 years ago, but
Yeah.
I had the whole basic figure line. I had tons of toys, and I lost all that in a house fire.
Oh
My
no.
buddy's, one of my best friends, his house. It's kind of funny actually. He had a lot of houses burned down over the course of like 6 years. It was kind of wild.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not funny. But it was just we laugh about it now. One of
Right,
those
yeah,
sort of those things. But
yeah,
at that point, I'd had a bunch of stuff. I was keeping in his house,
yeah.
and lost it all. And but I just like how the collector's itch is. You just keep going. So
Yep.
there's still a ton of that stuff that I want to replace at some point. But it's all it's like any vintage action figure. It's you're weighing like. Do I really want to spend $700 on six action figures that I had when I was 15, or do I
Yeah.
want to spend $700 on literally anything else that would be a better way to
Oh,
use
that's
my
funny.
money at this point in my life? So someday.
So I'm going to show you one that I have here. I found this at a flea market
Oh, that's cool. That's
for
really cool.
$5, and it's like the original one, like, and you can see where it connects to the rest of the figure and everything.
Yeah,
I
I
found it for
love that.
$5, man. I love this thing. I just
That
set it
was
over
the
here.
only when they did all the Legacy Zords. So I have all of those
Uh-huh.
except Falcon Zord. That's the only
Really?
one I never bought, and I hate that I didn't because it was later in the line, and
Yeah.
so now because I kind of was like, well, because it never really dropped in price. It never hit a clearance thing at
Right.
Toys R Us or
Right.
whatever. And rest in peace, Toys R Us. And
Right. Yes.
and I was like, well, someday there'll be a bunch of them out there. I'll be able to get it. And now it's like one of the more expensive ones. And it's like,
It is.
of course, the one that I decided not to buy,
That's
that's
the way
how
it
it
goes,
goes.
man. I think my mom still has them, but I was a big Blue Ranger fan as a kid.
Mm,
I had glasses when I was in kindergarten and stuff, and so I kind of identified with Billy a lot, and so I had the gloves that, like, you could hit together and they'd make the different
mm,
noises, and they had the
yeah.
button to make the chopping noises. I'm pretty sure my mom still has that, like, in her cedar chest or something. And like, I had the old metallic blue figure, like the original one. Whenever, what was that season? Was it season 3 when they
Yeah. Yeah.
went metallic? And I had to have that one. And man, I hope that she still has those. I haven't asked her. I need to go and look, but I know how that is, having those toys, and then you're like, man, I wish I still knew where they were.
Hmm.
And they bring back good memories, and that's one thing I love about this is, and this is a lot for 90s kids, nostalgia is a big thing for us, because it was a simpler time, and it was probably one of the best times, I think,
Yeah.
was the 90s. So having all that stuff to go back to is, it's a good experience for us, and I don't see anybody else that talks about nostalgia the way a millennial does.
Well, and I think I, I would like to. It's possible that someone has done studies about this, but I think that's a good thing that you bring up,
Yeah.
just in terms of an observation, because there was a version. So when I was writing the book, when I went into it, there was a point like in my planning process that I was going to write a whole lot more about the fandom surrounding Power Rangers and how it sort of coincided, like the fandom of Power Rangers coincides with the growth of the internet and
Yeah.
online, and it's like there's never been a you know adult fandom of Power Rangers that existed without the internet.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting, and that was an idea that was like constantly in my head, and there
Yeah.
just wasn't really a natural place to really dive into it. But I'm hoping maybe someday I'll write about it, for an article or something,
There you go.
because I think there's something there. But to touch on what you were talking about, I think for millennials, that 90s, we're the last group that had a world pre-internet and got to experience that.
Right.
And then we're coming of age at this time where the internet obviously is something that you is so crucial and part of our life. So
Yep.
we have that sort of longing, I think, innately for this point in time where this technology that just completely revolutionized the
Yeah.
world is so ingrained in our lives, and we're like the natives to that
Yeah.
technology. So it's
Yeah.
like we're the pioneers of that technology, and also the people who left behind
Right.
this world that we didn't get to experience. I mean, I gotta imagine it's probably how we experience the internet and how our fandom and feelings of nostalgia kind of conjure up inside of us. I imagine that's how a lot of people um felt around the turn of like when television showed up. Like I
Right.
think like and then how they looked at that kind of dividing line.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we have a lot of in common with people in like the 40s. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I will say this. Me and you were talking before we started recording here. And I like listening to podcasts, audio versions of podcasts. And that all stems from I always enjoyed audio series whenever I was a
Mm.
kid. I would go to a Cracker Barrel and look for those CDs, of old radio programs. I've always enjoyed that. And so might be because, so little side story here from me. I didn't grow up with a TV in my household. If I
Mm.
wanted to watch TV, I had to go to my grandma's house because I was raised a very strict Pentecostal, and they didn't believe in television. And so most of my TV watching was at a friend's house, or it was at my grandma's house or something like that. Until I got to a certain age to where I was like, I'm going to save up my money and buy my own TV to have in my room. And so that's how it kind of changed for me there. But I don't know where I was going with this. I completely
Radio. You
radio,
mentioned listening to
yes.
radio.
So I grew up listening to a lot of radio programs and stuff because I didn't have TV. So comic books and radio were like my biggest entertainment, if I was at home. And so I've always kind of loved that audio series and stuff. And there's actually a Power Rangers audio podcast, and it's like a dramatized
Oh
version,
yeah.
and it kind of mixes the comics with the TV show and everything, and it gives it a more adult vibe, I guess you could say, to it. But I love it, and
Hmm.
they need to continue making these. I think they just started making Zeo, but I don't know if you've listened to any of those.
I have. It's been forever since I've checked them out. I listened to like the first couple of episodes back. I actually know it's been a long time because the house I live in now I bought in 2020, right, literally right as the pandemic was starting. My timing could not have worked out any
Oh,
better.
all
The
right.
house, I don't love the house. It's a small house, but in terms of affordability and everything,
Yeah,
like I couldn't have worked out any better.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I was still living in the last house I rented when I was listening to that podcast. So it's been
Okay,
5 years for sure and I'm sure. So yeah, but at that point they were just starting. I think they maybe
right.
were 4 episodes in. So it sounds like if they've made it all the way to Zeo, then I've
Yeah,
got a lot of catching up to do. But I remember thinking like this is really cool, and it's
yeah,
something that it struck me as it it was kind of interesting that that was never a thing that officially existed for
right.
Power Rangers. Honestly, the Rock album kind of has that.
Yeah,
It's like a kid version of that, where they try to kind of intersplice,
right.
parts of the show within the music, and that's fun,
Yeah,
especially for a kids thing. But it is sort of interesting that they never even did like an official kids like audio drama, because I imagine I would have listened to that for sure when
Oh
I
yeah.
was growing up. Like I would have ate it up.
Yeah, I mean I had my Saturday morning radio programs that I listen to. I know it sounds weird, but they have, just like they have Saturday morning cartoons, they had
Hmm.
Saturday morning kids programs on the radio too. And a lot of that, there was one called Adventures in Odyssey that I listened to a lot, and it's still going to this day.
I had never heard of Seamus Kelly, a journalist. He writes for Den of Geek. And he's Power Rangers, like, is one of his
Yeah.
big fandoms, and he's written a ton about Power Rangers and done a lot of cool interviews with people from throughout the show. He is writing, like, on his blog, he grew up with that radio show, and I was like, I'm
Okay.
fascinated. So anytime he posts about it, I read about, like, what it's a fascinating um show, because I grew up in not a religious home, but in a very religious area,
Yeah.
and that was something that I could have been exposed to that, but I just missed it. I
Right.
just didn't get exposed to it.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I'm fascinated by it just because I was so in that religious kind of,
Yeah.
eh, the water, I guess,
Yeah.
that whole
Yeah.
thing was just in the water. So
Right.
um
Right.
I think that's fascinating.
Well, and it's kind of cool the people that were a part of that, like Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles, Townsend Coleman, was a main voice on that audio program. The original voice of Barbie is the host of the show.
Hmm.
It's crazy. The crossover between different things, especially when it comes to these nostalgic things that we have in our lives. There's so much crossover that we don't even know. And I've been learning while I've been doing this show, the different really cool things that you find. Um, Kind of like I read the other day, and I thought this was kind of interesting, that Jason David Frank was actually supposed to be a part of VR Troopers. I
Hmm.
mean, that cool things like that, that you would have never known, and now we're finding out more as it comes out.
Yeah, yeah, I touch on that in the book, and it's because they sort of built, because originally the way VR Troopers got, I don't want to say pitched, I guess, but the way it was sort of put together originally was it was just going to be a solo show. It was just going to use footage from one of the Metal Hero series and use JDF as the lead for that series, and it was called Cybertron, and they did the whole pilot. You can find the pilot on YouTube. If you've not watched it, you should go dig that up. It's
I,
it's fascinating.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
And it's something that I based on what I've been able to put together, the reason that it didn't happen was he was so popular that the show, like, they were getting so many letters and things from the network,
Yeah.
that they kind of pulled aside and said, let's bring him back to the Power Rangers. And I don't know really, though. I don't know. What I've never really understood is why that triggered, like, okay, let's do this as a trio show instead of another solo show. I think that
Right.
show, there's a version of VR Troopers that maybe it actually probably works better as a solo show instead of a
Yeah.
team show, just to differentiate it more from Power Rangers. Because like Fox Kids didn't even want to air it. They decided not to pick it up. So
Right.
Saban sold it into syndication.
Yeah.
It ended up on like UPN or something.
Interesting.
But um, yeah, it's a fascinating what if. Like, what if JDF had been Cybertron, and it's just a fascinating. It's the fact that it's named, like, they were going with Cybertron. It's like
Yeah.
that whole Saban Entertainment. They were so good at stealing words from different things to try to use. Like the Zords were originally called droids.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
how would you ever think you could, one, like, even get away with trying to use droids? Because I'm sure Disney, or, well, not Disney now, but Fox at the time would have come and
Right.
sued.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, so you were talking about how it being a solo show. We had one, and it didn't last that long, and I always really liked it. And that was the Common Rider show that we got.
Yeah.
Um, I I just remember very brief little parts about it, but I remember how interesting it was. But it felt like it went away very quickly. But that was because of the whole um the popularity of Power Rangers is the reason
Mhm.
why we got shows like that and shows like Beetleborgs.
Now, I was a big Beetleborgs guy. Now, I didn't watch, no, I'm not sure. I guess I probably did watch Mass Rider when I was a kid, but it's the one, it's never been made available on DVD.
Yeah.
It's the one that's not, I think VR Troopers actually just this week is on Tubi. It ended up, it's like on
Oh,
Tubi,
okay.
just dropped on Tubi or something. So it's available to stream now, but because those DVDs, it's DVDs
Yeah.
and Beetleborgs have both been out of print for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with Mass Rider, it's never been available, so I've never really sought it out. And like, it doesn't have a good reputation. I don't know
Yeah.
that I would love it, but
Right.
I would like to go back and watch it just to see it. I
Yeah.
think people tend to like, I know I've never seen this, but Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, they did an adaptation again, a different company in '08, '07, '08, sometime around that range for Kids WB or whatever the channel was at that time. And
Gotcha.
it aired there. And I think people tend to actually say that's a pretty good show. So that might be worth seeking out. I actually think I'd be more interested in watching that myself if I was to go tracking down something. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating that Kamen Rider has never really worked here. And I think a lot of it's weird. I think because none of that stuff was ever as popular as Power Rangers. Beetleborgs was
Right.
never, its ratings were never as good. Its ratings were good, but they weren't ever as good. And Power Rangers ratings were in decline by the time
Yeah.
Beetleborgs showed up. And
Right.
they still weren't consistently
Yeah.
where Power Rangers was.
Yeah.
So you had an audience for it, but you never could like recapture that magic. And I think, especially at that time, Saban Entertainment was the one adapting all the shows and from Japan and producing all the shows. So if if the options are we're going to split our budget into making two shows that are like Power Rangers, or we can funnel it all into Power Rangers.
Right.
I mean, that's why
Yeah.
you start seeing there at the end. That's part of why you start seeing In Space, Lost Galaxy,
Yeah.
Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force, all these shows. They start looking a lot better, and
Right.
they start and well, and another thing, they also at some point get forced into being a SAG show those last few seasons, so
Right.
they have to spend more on actors, and so it was for the better of the shows. You lost stuff like Mystic Knights was another
Yeah.
one that
Yeah.
was an adapted that was a try to do it on their own type thing that didn't work
Right.
out too well. But I think it was to Power Rangers' benefit that that stuff ultimately didn't have none of it ever lasted more than two seasons,
Right.
and but it worked out for Power Rangers in that way because all that money ended up getting funneled into Power Rangers by the end.
Yeah. So, what would you say is if you had to pick one season, what would you say is your favorite story when it comes to Power Rangers?
Oh, my favorite story. So my favorite season is Time Force.
Okay. It's a good one.
Um,
That's a great one.
yeah, I love Time Force. I say, but the way you ask that is interesting. Favorite story, because I might say something else if it's just, if you're really wanting to be specific on about the
Yeah.
story. Hmm. Because I mean, I really like RPM the way it's sort of it's very insulated from all the other series.
Yeah.
It's really self-contained in that way, and it's sort of I'm not like a typically a big post-apocalyptic person, but I kind of like how it all
It,
jobs together with Power Rangers that
yeah.
season. And
Yeah. That one
um,
is really cool. I liked it was very different from everything else that we had gotten so far,
mhm.
and it grabbed you right away. You're like, okay, this story is completely different, and how they went about, in the opening, when he's just driving through the
Mhm.
desert, and everything. So yeah, I could see that.
And I think what I like, because I see a lot of people, RPM is a fan favorite, so I'm not
Yeah.
like talking about some obscure season here.
Right. Yeah.
But I do see people often throw it out as like if they're like if someone's asking like I've never watched Power Rangers before. You see this on Reddit and places sometimes. I've never watched Power Rangers before. What season should I start with?
Yeah.
One, my answer to that is always whichever one looks the coolest to you, that's the one.
Right.
That's my default answer. But I see a lot of people will throw out RPM, and I actually don't think RPM is a good season to throw yourself into as your first Power Ranger season. Like if
Okay.
I'm being, just because I think the things that it does that are unique, and it is very obviously a very unique season of Power Rangers.
Yeah.
I think it's harder to I almost think having experienced really any other season of Power Rangers can make you appreciate what RPM's doing different before you dive in with that.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
Like, and then going back to Time Force, I've just always so I'll admit, like I think some of that is rooted in nostalgia. I mean, I've watched this season and I still feel as good about it as I always have. But I do think, I was 10 years old when Time Force was airing, so that was like my first really moment in time where, well, I'm really like really remembering what I'm watching,
Yeah. Yeah.
engaging with it, like where you start kind of forming those memories that kind of stick with you for real. Like I remember
Right.
things before then, but like I can remember looking forward to watching those every Saturday and recording them and doing all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And and then and then just for like I'm in elementary school. 9/11 happens. I'm on
Yeah.
the forums, like so, and
Yeah.
I'm like reading in real time, like I'm engaging in fandom things for the first time,
Right.
and I'm reading about how the episodes are getting cut because of like the 9/11, like they started taking out some of the buildings getting blown up at the time because of that. And so that was like my Time Force as which I liked as a season, but it was also my like introduction really into, oh, this is media. This is what can happen to media sometimes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
sometimes the real world is going to affect things and make people are going to come together and make decisions and start cutting away things. And
Right.
so, and then the show during the Time Force is airing gets bought by Disney.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of crazy stuff happening around that season. And I think so for me, I almost like that turmoil. I've always been someone that sort of like thrives in chaos a little bit, and I think I associate that chaos with Time Force and like it's and watching it and loving the show the whole time I was watching it and the themes that it does. The
Yeah.
destiny and
Yeah.
making your own choices. Those are things that I've always really held close to my heart. It just in general in my personal life. So I think all of that just kind of it's hard for me to disassociate all that stuff when I'm watching that show, and I
Yeah.
just think I think I think it is the best cast. There's a few others that have a good case, but I think top to bottom, Tom Force's cast just really comes together in a way. And the side character, I'm including like not just the Ranger cast, but Vernon Wells is Rancic,
Yeah.
uh, Sheldon is Kate Sheldon is Nadira. I mean, it's just top to bottom. The whole cast is
Right.
phenomenal.
Well, and it was cool because they tried something new. It was the first time that we got a female lead as
Mhm.
the leader of a Power Rangers team, and so that was it's nice to go back and see that that they tried that pretty early on.
Mhm.
And I mean, very strong characters, like you said, throughout with all the people in the show. So yeah, I mean, Time Force is definitely a great one to say, hey, that's my favorite.
Yeah, no, and then and this will throw some people off. So after Time Force, I go back and forth. After Time Force, it's hard for me to like rank them, like
Okay.
because Time Force for me is like so clear cut my favorite.
Yeah.
And after that, it's kind of like a hodgepodge. Like there's some days I might say RPM, some
Yeah.
days I might say In Space. Again, I'm not
Yeah.
like throwing out any like really crazy ones here. Everyone loves the good ones.
Right.
Um, the one that throws people off sometimes, though, I love Turbo. Like I think Turbo
Oh,
is so ridiculous at the
okay.
beginning and
Yeah.
really throughout the whole show. But I think for me, what I like, I gained a whole different level of appreciation for it while was I in college? It was a little bit after college, but I did a rewatch one year, and I was just so. I think. I in my head I'd built it up as like this season is like the worst season of Power Rangers. I hadn't watched it forever,
Yeah.
and because that's just you're online your whole life, and people say that, so you just believe it because it's like, oh, of course it is. I've always believed that. Why wouldn't it? And then I
Yeah.
go back and watch it, and I'm like okay, I understand the things that people don't like about it. The
Right.
bomb. It's like every episode's, especially for the first half, is like there's a bomb somewhere. Let's go
Yeah.
find it. There's some really silly stuff, but I I don't know. I like because I think that was my first kind of light bulb moment. That's and especially as I was writing the book, I was affirmed in this even more. Like it changed that experience with Turbo changed a lot about how I watch the show and what I
Right.
want from the show. Especially as I rewatch it, is it is a silly show. Like it's like why do I want this to be? Um, something that it isn't. It is a
Yeah.
very goofy, silly superhero show
Yeah.
that it has range. It's a superhero show with range. It can be
Right.
Turbo, or it can be RPM, or it
Yeah.
can be Time Force, or it can be season one of Mighty Morphin, which is
Yeah.
also incredibly silly, really, when you kind of boil it down. So I think that's the thing that Power Rangers manages to do. It's Batman. It really is. Power Rangers is Team Batman in that way because
Yeah.
I love The Dark Knight, and I love I'm one of these people who I grew up loving Batman the animated series.
Yep.
It's phenomenal. I mean, it's
Yep.
a world-class cartoon.
Yep.
In in recent years, though, I've also really Batman the Brave and the Bold is kind of knocking on the door is something that I also really love, and there's days I might say that is my favorite Batman cartoon, which is not something I ever would have guessed.
Oh wow.
Batman 66, the live
Right.
action show, is something
Yeah.
that I didn't grow up watching that, and I started watching it, as an adult, and it's like,
Right.
okay, I can see, like, I love this, even though I didn't grow up with it, and it's corny and silly and ridiculous, but so I
Yeah.
think Power Rangers is a lot of ways is Batman in terms of its range
Yeah.
of seriousness or silliness,
Yeah.
except as a team superhero show.
I get that. And I was one of those people too. And until recently, that I was always like, Turbo's the worst, and it
And don't
gets
get me wrong, it is a
better.
very
Yeah,
chaotically put together
it
season of Power
is,
Rangers.
but it gets better towards the end. I mean, the storylines get better. I mean, the people that I found annoying in the show kind of aren't as annoying towards
Mhm.
the end. And so it's I don't know. I mean, it's one that I definitely didn't like it as a kid, but I've learned to appreciate it more as an adult. So yeah, I
And
get
it's
that.
tough too when you're a kid when you're especially that mid-season cast change. It's just
Yeah,
so out of nowhere, and we know now why that'll happen, but it's
right.
something that you don't know as a kid, and you're like because always all those moments, I write about this in the book, but every time a cast change like that happens in Power Rangers, to me, it's a flag that somebody can say, or they see it and they can look at it and say, okay, it's time for me to jump off. When
Yeah,
Austin, Tui, and Walter leave in season two, if you love those characters or any one of those characters and you have a pretty good idea that they're not coming back,
yeah,
okay, peace out. Like I'm done with Power Rangers.
yeah.
When Kimberly leaves in season three, if you're a
Hmm.
girl who loved Power Rangers, I don't think it's a coincidence that when the show started out as being really popular with girls,
Yeah,
and then you lost your two first original female cast members
right.
2 years into the show
Yeah,
existing,
yeah,
suddenly girls start falling off. I think because with girls it's different than boys. Boys, we connect with the act, and I'm speaking in very like generalized terms here,
right.
but boys as kids tend to gravitate towards action. The colors more,
Yeah,
the heroic stuff. We care about the characters, but like we kind of focus more on the nuts and bolts of things a lot of times. Girls are definitely more into the people. And I think if
yeah,
you're taking away their the first two role models they have in the show, it's just going to be harder. Like you every time you
right,
take away something, it just makes it harder for anybody to relate to something.
right.
So even though I think Tanya, by the time she shows up in Zeo, I think she's definitely the best, like well-developed Yellow Ranger. Like I think that's not even
Absolutely.
close.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she ends up being the best Yellow Ranger of that first like three or four Yellow Rangers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so it's not a matter of the writing, it's just how, kids kind of perceive stuff.
Right. Right. No, I definitely agree with you on that. There were certain points where I did fall off even in the beginning, but I would come back, especially I think the thing that brought me back in for, um, Wild Force is when they did Forever Red.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
that's what brought me in, and I was like, "Oh, this is great!" And so then I watched all of it. And but Forever Red was the reason why I came back. But there was other seasons that I found over time, being bored at my grandma's house and discovering Lost Galaxy and realizing, hey, I actually really like the story that they have going on
Hmm.
here. And then having my uncle tape all those episodes for me so I could watch them when I was at my grandma's house. And so it was certain people when they leave, it kind of you kind of go away with them sometimes
Hmm.
too. And so yeah, no, I that totally makes sense to me.
I love the Forever Red. I think I mentioned this in the introduction of the book, kind of. My so the day that Forever Red aired, the first day it aired,
Uh-huh.
it it my dad was in a halfway house in West Virginia. We lived in Eastern Kentucky, and he was in a halfway house about 2 hours away from where we lived, maybe 2.5 hours away from where we lived. And so we drove that morning, and I just did not want to go. Like I did not want to go see my dad at
Yeah.
all. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to stay home and watch Power Rangers. And so I watched, I recorded it and did all that stuff. But I remember, like I was so I didn't had zero interest in being in that halfway house. I wanted to get back home, and I remember I went back and got to watch it and just was like, this is like life will never get better than this
Yeah. Yeah.
this episode of Power Rangers.
Right.
Like I didn't even watch. There were two episodes that day. So can you just know the episode that aired also that day?
No.
The Soul of Humanity. It's like the right next episode after
Oh,
Forever
okay.
Red. Or it might
Okay.
be right before. I don't remember. It's either right before or right after in the air
Yeah.
order. And
Yeah.
it aired the same day because Disney, they were originally airing like two episodes at once.
Right.
And I don't know that I even recorded that episode. I know for sure I didn't watch it because I just spent the whole night rewatching Forever Red over
Right.
and over.
Right. I think me and my buddy, like he recorded it on his DVR, and
Mm.
we watched it at least 4 times that night. So yeah, man, it was so good though.
I love that. Like we were talking about nostalgia and stuff earlier. I love, obviously, it's so much easier to access everything now. It's
Right.
never been easier to watch Power Rangers, but
Thank you,
growing
Tubi.
up and yeah, Tubi, shout out Roku channel. I'm a big
Yeah.
Roku channel guy.
Yeah.
The DVDs are obviously like if you told 10-year-old me that well, not now, not every single episode, but almost every single episode of Power Rangers would be available on DVD,
Yeah.
I would have just thought you were insane. Like I'd
Yeah.
always said forever, like if they ever did a big set, um, so I bought all the boxes, like the Shout Factory, when they put out the boxes, I was buying those as they came out. And then they did this big helmet set,
Hmm.
98 disc, the same disc that I'd already bought, but they also had Samurai in it. They included
Yeah.
Samurai in that set,
Okay.
because it was like a 20th anniversary set. And I bought every single one of those stupid episodes again for that set. That set was like $800 or something. And I,
Jeez.
I, I ordered
Yeah.
it the minute it went up because I was like, I always said if they did this, I'm going to buy it because it was
Yeah.
like that's how much I loved the show and how much I wanted to, like. I just never dreamed when I was a kid that that would be something that would exist, and
Right.
it just it's insane to me that to think about. I was like I cherished my 4 or 5 like tapes,
Yeah.
VCR, what are they called? They VH. There was a certain type of
VHS.
VHS
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you would record things on. They were like,
Yeah.
oh, I can see the box, like the little retro
The
looking box.
RCA. ones and all
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
RCA and all
yeah,
that stuff, and just how much like I cherish those tapes,
yeah,
as my
yeah.
like this is my Power Rangers archive. And now to think about that now, it's like that stuff is it's a miracle that it even worked.
Yeah, yeah. Well, wasn't there some of them if you didn't have the tape, like you could put tape over the sides of it and record over something
Oh
because there
yeah,
was like little
yeah.
tabs or something on the
hmm
side.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's all kinds of way you could screw that up. If you're listening to this and you don't know what the hell we're talking about, you're lucky because like you could jack this stuff up so many ways. You could
yeah,
forget to slide the thing. You could forget that that it was daylight savings time on your VCR, so that
yep,
you would be recording the news instead of Power Rangers.
yep,
You would tape over things all the time. Like there was a thousand ways to screw these things up. Your
yep.
VCR could just stop working and eat it.
It could
Like
eat the tape. Yeah. Oh, no.
that happened several times. That was, ugh.
Devastating is what that is. Yeah. So we're going to kind of jump into the book side of this just a little more. Man, I've been enjoying this. This has been a lot of fun talking to you and, just kind of nerding out here. But I kind of want to, ask you a few questions when it came to making this because there is so much information in this book. The amount of different interviews that you researched and people that you talked to, and the amount of time that you put into this book. How long did it take you to compile all of this information?
Um, well, if you go back to the beginning, it was, well, if you want to go really back to the beginning, I was in diapers. Um,
All right.
but I half joke, but it is important because I've had a couple people ask me like, "Oh, so what are you going to write about next? Or are you going to do another book?" And one, I would love to,
Yeah,
but I have to sort of take a breath and then also figure out like what that thing would be
yeah,
because there's nothing that I have a foundational knowledge of about as much as I have Power Rangers.
yeah,
Like Power Rangers was the thing that I've loved it. Seriously, I don't remember a time in my life when I didn't follow the show and I was in the first time I used the internet, I was looking around for Power Ranger stuff on the internet and I found Ranger Board and all this or Ranger Central at that time is what it was called.
yeah,
And it and I was in that's how I was introduced to online fandom was for better or worse as a 7, 8 year old, 9 year old kid.
yeah,
And so I grew up with that and seeing like the stuff that you learned that the kind of things you can only pick up growing up in a fandom
yeah,
like that and the conversations and the way people perceive things over time. So so it starts there, but concretely, the summer of 2021, I'm on the beach reading a book about Jeopardy. It's called Answers in the Form of Jeopardy. If you're a Jeopardy fan and you haven't read that book, you should. It's fantastic. Um, the woman who wrote it, Claire McNear, she started she did a lot of podcasts and stuff, and so I read that book and I was thinking, um, I why doesn't this exist for Power Rangers? Like this should exist for Power Rangers.
yeah,
So I started listening to her on some shows and just to get a sense of like why she did it and how she did it. And through that, ended up listening to other people and getting, advice and stuff from them on like how you pitch a book like this. Because I've never done this. My background at that time, I was a sports writer
yeah,
for the Lexington and Herald Leader and had no, so I was a journalist, but I didn't have any connections to publishing or anything. I'd never written a book or anything. So from there, I start building a proposal, doing all that. At the same time, I go ahead and I do start reaching out to some people to try to interview just to have like something, just to
yeah,
start laying some groundwork. So the first, um, oh, I'm going to get this wrong. I wish I had this pulled this up. The one of the first people I talked to was Jackie Marchand. Um, she was fantastic, one of the writers on the show forever. And I ended up circling back with her and doing another interview later on, like 3 years later almost. Um, but oh, she was not the first one. I don't remember who the first person was, but I started talking to, oh, it was, I think it was Isaac Florentine. He was a director.
okay, okay, yeah,
Um, and he was awesome, helped me so much in the beginning, just for like just from credibility, like
Yeah. Yeah.
explaining like, and I was explaining to these people early on, like this book may not happen, this might not be something that actually materializes. I'm just trying to cover my bases early on and build some foundation for this proposal. So from there, I start doing the proposal. I start pitching that to agents, and so that was around January of 2022 when I started doing that. So I'm 6 months in and just now starting to pitch. A year later, I still hadn't heard of anything. And the way I was pitching it early on was this is something that, sorry, excuse me.
You good?
This is something that should sort of come out around the 30th anniversary, which was August 2023.
Right.
And that was very ambitious, first of all, because once I started learning about publishing, like there was no way that was ever going to happen. Unless like literally, the minute I started pitching,
Yeah.
someone had wanted it. Like
Yeah.
that would have been the only way. And that still probably wouldn't have hit right on time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so it was around February of 2023. I still had nothing. I'd barely heard any rejections from anybody. And I was like, okay, like I'm still believing this. I want to do this still, but I had a kid on the way. We were 3 months pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit on this. I'm sending out this one last wave of stuff, and I'm going to sit on it and focus on kid, and then revisit it in a year or two and get back to it and start doing this again. 45 minutes later, I'm not shitting you, the guy who became my agent responded to me in an email and said, "Hey, you want to get on a phone call tomorrow to talk about this?" And
wow.
I was just like, it's just like the minute I'm ready to hang it up for a second is the moment that I finally get, some fish on the hook.
That's
And
amazing.
and we talk. He loves the idea. He sees where I'm coming from. Because what was a big thing for him, that we connected on was he's really passionate about, wanting to get books into the world that men want to read. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a very like female dominated market, and that's not a bad thing,
No.
but you know there's a lot of things happening in the world that kind of you can sort of pinpoint back to, like men don't read as much as women.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be an issue for a lot of reasons, but a lot of it's about content, getting content out there that people, if they want to engage with. And so he really thought that this was something that would hit that mark, and thankfully he did. We eventually, fast forward a few months later, I finally signed a deal with a publisher, Applause Books. At that time, they were an imprint of a academic publisher called Rowman and Littlefield. Now they are an imprint of Bloomsbury, which people may have heard of only because they're based out of the UK, but they have an American branch. And
Okay.
they're the publisher of Sarah J. Maas's books, who she's like a huge, I don't remember the names of her books, but she is like a big ass deal.
Okay.
And also they publish in the UK, they publish their Harry Potter books.
Oh.
So they have some clout. So that was cool, but they amongst all this time, I'm still interviewing people, and then I finally start writing the meat of the book. A lot of it was written between November 2023 into January 24. And my manuscript was due in April 2024. So it about 70,000 words of what became a 90-some thousand word book was written in 3 months. And it's very informed, like by, interviews, over 100 interviews with people,
Yeah.
newspaper clippings. I bought TV guides off eBay. I was
Oh,
doing all
wow.
kinds of stuff, like just doing a lot of archival research. And this was stuff like even though I'd never written a book and all that, this was something that, I have these skills. I knew how to research. I know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I felt very confident. It was a lot of for me, the big issue throughout the entire time I was writing was really trying to hone in on my audience, because
Yeah.
there's a way you can do a book like this and it be very, very dense with like super, super intricate details about Power Rangers that hardcore fans would love and appreciate and want to know.
Right.
But someone who watched Mighty Morphin and then never cared about it again, and then they see this book and think, "Oh, I want to read about Power Rangers. I love that show."
Yeah.
When I was a kid, would get into this and immediately like be 2 chapters in and want to burn it. So it's
Yeah.
about bridging that gap, like trying to figure out like who is the ideal reader for this.
Right.
Um, and I settled early on as that person being kind of more like that person who maybe left the show or rather than like the hardcore fan, but I still think there's a ton of stuff here for like the hardcore people. Like it's not that it's not for them. It's
Yeah.
just more like you have to make it accessible to the person who maybe doesn't hasn't kept up with it as much. And I
Yeah.
think that was my biggest like thing throughout the writing and research process is like because you come across so many things and you talk to so many people that have these really cool details and facts and
Yeah.
stuff that
Yeah.
that you can put into the book if you want to, but there's not a place for them because it just doesn't fit into the story.
Right.
And that was another thing. I wanted to make an entertaining story for me. It was largely, I want to tell the history of Power Rangers and through these retellings from people who were there making the show, doing stuff over time with the show, business stuff, toy stuff related to the show. But I
Yeah.
also wanted to make an entertaining story. Like, it's narrative nonfiction. If you're someone who doesn't know that phrase, I had it pounded into my head. Like I realized as I was like starting to learn what that phrase meant, it's like, oh, this is just what I do as a sports writer. It's all of it's narrative nonfiction,
Yeah.
really. But in the publisher side, it's a work of nonfiction that's trying to tell a story.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so that's what this is. And I think I'm biased, but I think it does a pretty good job of telling the story of Power Rangers up until
Absolutely.
the present day.
Yeah.
There's things
Yeah.
that have happened even since the book was published that
Right.
aren't in there,
Right.
obviously. But
Right.
that's the nature of something with like Power Rangers that is everlasting. Is you're always like, so you have to kind of come up with an endpoint that makes sense, knowing that.
Yeah. What would you say was your the part that you enjoyed the most when it came to researching this? Was there a certain part of the book that like intrigued you a little more than some of the other parts?
Yeah, I was really into the whole like getting into the nitty gritty of the Disney sale, like so that part of the Disney thing, like just kind of how all of that, like the really nerdy stuff, like
Yeah.
there's this great magazine that I came across while I was researching called Broadcasting and Cable. I ended up citing them quite a bit in the book because they were just a terrific resource for numbers and stats and things.
Yeah.
And um, I don't think it exists anymore, but
Okay.
it lasted into the 2000s.
Gotcha.
But they were a great resource for some of that, like just window dressing around that story
Yeah.
of the and but also the people, like a lot of the people that worked at Saban Entertainment and Fox Kids at the time, and they were really by that time they were the same company,
Yeah.
and were just fascinating. David McDermott is someone who I think I only use like 2 quotes from in the entire book, but and some of the details are informed by him obviously, but we were on the Zoom call for 3 hours, yeah, and had just a fantastic conversation. Um, Jermaine Turner is another guy who he was working at Saban Entertainment and Fox Kids Worldwide at that time, who
Yeah.
stayed on, and he ended up being one of the main executives in charge of the show while it
Okay.
was owned by Disney, and he was a fantastic resource. Um, just to learn about how Disney kind of approached the show. Because I think, and so that was another thing, that whole Disney era that I was really interested in. Because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what, because there's, it's natural when a show like Power Rangers as long as is around as long as it has been, and there isn't a book or a definitive resource of information out there
Yeah.
like this book
Right.
for people, fan like theories and things just kind of start to take hold as fact.
Right.
And and just people think like, oh, Disney hated the show. Like that was a, and maybe I'm not going to say there weren't people at Disney who didn't hate the show. I'm sure there were.
Yeah.
But there were probably also people at Fox Kids who hated Power Rangers. Like, if
Right.
we're being
Yeah.
honest, like,
Yeah.
so, it's one of those things. Like, yeah, okay, but when you talk to people and kind of, there's nuance to everything. So I
Yeah.
think that was the most fun for me, at least, thing about working on this was really learning a lot more about that era of the show,
Yeah.
how the executives at Disney approached it, how just internally it approached in Disney. Some of the things that they tried to do that never came to into existence, I thought were really fun to write and learn about. And yeah, and I just think that whole era of the show, I think if I'm being honest, I think I would say that is the best era of the show, even though it's not like my most nostalgic era of the show. I
Yeah.
do think that whole run from Ninja Storm to through RPM is
Yeah.
probably the best stretch of the show, because I think it blends a lot of like the really awesome cool stuff about Power Rangers that was established at that time, but all of those seasons also have a very unique identity.
Yeah.
Um, even though I'm not the biggest Operation Overdrive person, I still think even that season, like, so much of why it struggles is like it doesn't lack ambition. It just was like hamstrung by what it was pitched
Right.
as ultimately not coming to fruition. Like, I think if
Yeah.
that show had been the show that it wanted to be, it would have also been probably a really great season of Power Rangers. So,
Yeah.
um, I think, but from I think that Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, SPD, just those three. If someone were listing off their favorite seasons of Power Rangers and those were their three, I think that would be a tremendous three.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's and they're all very different shows.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're kind of coming up close to a close here. I've got a few more questions that I want to ask you before we get you off of here. In doing this, you talked about how there's more information that has come out since you've done this, and one of the things that came out since the book is the documentary that we had.
Mhm.
Did you watch that, and what were your thoughts on it?
I'm going to disappoint you tremendously when I say that I haven't watched it, and
You have
that's
not.
um a lot of there's a few reasons for that. Largely, the main one is I've just stayed really busy this time of year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still dabble in the sports writing thing, so I have a full-time job, and I've been doing things with a book, and I've
Yeah.
been and also have a side gig where I do sports writing still. So
Okay.
from about March onward until next week, it stays pretty busy here in Kentucky. So when I even have a time to sit down and watch TV, I try to avoid things that are going to make me sad. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's
Yeah.
been my main takeaway from people that I know that have watched it, and
Right.
they've made it sound like it's actually really sad. And I've
It
seen a couple
is.
clips from it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to. I will watch it. It's absolutely something I do want to watch it, because I feel
Yeah.
like I'm obligated. I mean, I have to watch it at some point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I get you. It's like you said, I just left sad afterwards, and there was a lot that I didn't know.
mm,
And so, and I'm sure there's stuff that doing the research for this book that you've come across. And so I'm sure a lot of it's going to be all stuff that you've probably already heard about and things like that. But yeah, it was definitely, you've got to give it a shot. You got to give it a
yeah,
watch. Um, so we've got a possible new season that we're going to get eventually. Where do you think that the story should go from here? What do you think? It should be a complete and total reboot? Should it stick to the audience that they've always done? How do you think that it should go in this new series, pretty much, that we're going to get?
yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know what you know about the. Have you seen the latest report about that, or the
um
latest? Um,
no, I
there
probably
was a
not.
so there's a when I say report, I use the word report loosely, but there's a person, I think he only is on Twitter, Jin Saku,
Okay.
who's sort of like an influencer, like like a leaker. I don't know how he would describe himself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
describe him in the book as an influencer, but some of these guys like to use leaker, like they use that.
Right.
But he's sort of in that leaker community type thing. And so, and Power Rangers is one of his things, and he's a big Power Rangers Sentai fan. So
Yeah.
he's really, he's into this stuff,
Yeah.
in a way that like other people like that maybe aren't. And he just over the weekend shared that there was the pitch. So this Disney Plus series that may or may not come to fruition, like the pitch for it, he framed it as it's it's sort of like was pitched as a mystery show, which would be certainly a different take for Power Rangers. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah.
But that would be like a soft reboot of, it's basically framed around like the world. There used to be Power Rangers, and
Yeah.
now they don't exist, and the world doesn't remember that they existed, which is
Oh,
really a kind of really interesting way to
yeah.
go about soft rebooting something that I think could work.
Yeah.
So if that was the story that came to fruition, if it in that pitch and how if their vision was kind of come to light, I think that could be
Yeah.
pretty interesting
Yeah.
as a show. I think it would be incredibly different. It would absolutely be so far removed from what fans have gotten used to that it would be jarring. I definitely think it would be jarring for longtime fans, but I also
Yeah.
think what I hope happens with that show, whether it's that or if it takes another form, if it becomes a completely different story, I kind of hope it takes a while to come out. Because I
Yeah.
think one thing, if you're going to take a break, and Power Rangers has never taken a break. It went 30 straight years.
Right.
We had there's an asterisk there. There's the year where they only
Yeah.
aired like a redone MMPR, but
Yeah.
technically that was technically a new season, the way that production seasons happen.
Yeah.
And there was a new
Yeah.
toy line. That was the main thing. It was
Right.
done
Right.
for the toys.
Exactly.
But so 30 straight years, asterisk. And now we're in year 2 of there not being a new show.
Right.
I'd be, I would love it like any other fan if a new show jumped out of nowhere tomorrow.
Right. Right.
If it takes 5 years for that next show to show up, though, I think that in the long term might be better for Power Rangers, like to go away for a decent amount of time and then come back with a really strong vision of what it wants to be
Yeah.
in this new iteration, instead of like trying to fast track something that ultimately doesn't connect with people. I'd wait 10 years if it meant like a new show
Yeah.
shows up and really like hits it with people and like becomes like, and then that show has like a 10-year lifespan. Like I think I would take that trade. Like if it takes, if it took that long to have something that really connects with people and resonates with people,
Right.
it would suck. It's weird. It's, I have a almost 2-year-old son, and it's weird to know, and he was born. So he was born, and then Cosmic Fury came out like 6 weeks later.
Mhm.
And so he was, he has existed for one season of Power Rangers that in his life, like has premiered in his lifetime. And it's
Yeah.
weird to think that he might be 7 or 8, 9 before the next season of Power Rangers shows up. Like that's really weird to think about. Just because I've been conditioned like every other Power Rangers fan to there's
Expect
going to be a
another
new
one.
Power Rangers
Yep.
next year. So it's
Exactly.
really been weird, as
Yeah.
just an emotional in my headspace thinking
Yeah.
like that. But that's when I, spin around and say there's almost 1,000 of episodes of Power Rangers right now, and
Right.
this entire archive on streaming. And I've got, I shit you not, I own some seasons of the show like 4 times over on DVD. So like, we ain't hurting for Power Rangers in this house, by
Right.
God.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, and I'm one of those. I buy them on DVD too. Like every year, I'll add to my list, and I'll add a few of the ones that I don't have of Power Rangers, and I'm starting to get a good collection of the DVDs as well. So
Dude, I'm at the point where I'm buying bootleg Blu-rays of the seasons that aren't on DVD that haven't been legally released yet. I'll
Yeah.
buy them once they're legally released. I'll buy those too. But until then,
Yeah.
I gotta get my fix. So
Oh, I've even got VHS. I don't even have a VCR, but I have VHS of Power Rangers.
same.
Yeah,
I
so-
haven't owned a VCR since for sure since I've lived in Lexington almost half my life.
Yeah.
16 years, and I've not owned a VCR the entire time I've lived here, but I own a ton of Power Rangers VHS.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the few things I have, I was just talking about this the other day with somebody. Also, I mentioned all my toys. I gave them up a bunch in a yard sale a long time ago, and then the ones I lost in the fire. But one of the
Yeah.
few things I have from my childhood of Power Rangers that survived to this day is a VHS of that McDonald's VHS that they did for Power
Oh
Rangers Lightspeed
yeah.
Rescue. I
Yeah.
have it's
Yeah.
sitting here on it's on my bookshelf over here
That's
across from me,
funny.
like on my display shelf. So I have that.
That's great. That's great. So, if people want to get a copy of this book, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can it's called Morphenomenal, How the Power Rangers Conquer the World. It's available anywhere you can buy books. And honestly, it really doesn't matter. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. Then this is all online. Like if you want to
Yeah.
get it, if you want like your local Barnes and Nobles to order it, you can go to the store and order it. It probably won't be on the shelves there. I mean, it's traditionally published, but it's from a smaller publisher, so you kind of
Right.
have to request things. Honestly, if you have a local bookstore that you love, like that would be the best thing to do. Go to them, order it
Okay.
from them.
Okay.
Just to support, buy local if you can. I
Yeah.
always advocate for that. But Amazon, bookshop.org is another place that even if you don't have a local like small bookstore you'd like to support, bookshop.org is an option. You can they have like a drop down menu of places you can support. That like indie bookstores that you can support by buying through Bookshop. They're basically like what Amazon started out as, which was just a bookstore, but now
Yeah.
Amazon has a lot more things than a bookstore.
All that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all of those options, and then through Amazon and Barnes and Noble, you can buy. I know for sure those two places you can buy the ebook. So if that's something you prefer, definitely do that as well.
All right.
It literally, I have so many people ask me like, where can I buy the book to get you the most money? And I'm like, man, my royalty is like 10 or 15% or something. So like, it really doesn't matter where you're buying the book. I just want people to buy the book. I want people to enjoy the book,
Right.
love the book, and and leave a review if you. That would be the one thing I ask beyond like buying it. Like if you buy it and you love it,
Yeah.
leave a review. If you buy it and you hate it, don't leave a review.
So, is there anything else that you want to talk about before I get you off of here?
Well, we were talking earlier about trigonometry. I thought we should
Oh,
probably do a deep dive into that next.
you're gonna make me look real dumb. So-
No, man, no, I appreciate you having me on. I know we had a little bit of a rocky road getting to this recording, but I've always love talking Power Rangers. I
Yeah.
think what you're doing is cool. I know it's tough. That dad life is
Yeah.
tough. You're deeper into it than I am, and I know it's a lot of work just existing and
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
do something like this. So it's having the kids is certainly, and that's been something. It really has. I was already migrating this direction, but especially since I've had a kid, he's really made me realize like Power Rangers is a great kids show,
Yeah.
and it's something. There's as fans, I think we can get disconnected from that at times because we grow up and we want it to be something else,
Right.
and it can be something else. Like I think the
Yeah.
2017 movie is something that sort of aspired to that.
We need more of that.
But I love that movie.
I do
That's
too.
like
Yeah.
I think the fact that it doesn't have a sequel is one of the biggest travesties in all of entertainment. But
I agree.
I honestly, and I'll go as far to say I think if that movie came out 2 years earlier, I think it probably would have gotten a sequel because I just think the nature of
Yeah.
like where things were in the
Right.
landscape of Hollywood were different than just 2 years later that they had changed so much.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I digress. The Power Rangers is fucking awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's really the coolest thing, one of the coolest things in the world as far as I'm concerned. And if you're someone that agrees with that, I think you would love my book as much as I loved writing it. So
Well, man, it has been wonderful talking to you tonight. I have really enjoyed this. I'm going to talk to you for a few more minutes after we end this recording, but we're going to say bye here for now. And again, thank you so much for being on the show.
thank you for having me, Jared.
And we are back. Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that interview. I know that I enjoyed that interview, and I also enjoyed the book so far that I've been reading, More Phenomenal. If that interview didn't inspire you to pick up the book, then this is me inspiring you to do it. So, me telling you, the listener or watcher, to go get that book right now. Just press pause, go buy it now, then come back.
We'll sit here and wait too. So,
Go ahead.
we'll just sit here. Did Nick? I
Did
thought
they
you were
get
gonna
it?
maybe. Hopefully they did. Hopefully they went out and purchased it. Did you said that you were gonna try to read the whole book, but I guess you didn't get the chance to do that, huh?
I was going to read the book, but then with
The spoiler at the beginning.
the spoiler that you
Yeah,
spoiled with time travel was
yeah,
messed up, and the space-time continuum um almost collapsed on us.
yeah.
So therefore, I couldn't read the entire book, but I read enough.
It was dangerous.
Um, and great, crazy things that you learn about Power Rangers in this
Yeah,
book. I mean, like I've only read a couple of chapters, but I didn't know that so many different things about it. How Jason's name was one that Austin St. John's real name is actually Jason.
yeah,
That he
yeah.
changed it during the interview process for Power Rangers,
Right.
and then also that Jason wasn't going to be the name of Jason; it was going to be Victor. So that's some fun
I'm kind of
facts.
glad that it wasn't Victor, though. If I'm being honest. So
They said that they wanted a stronger name. He said that in the book, the
yeah,
stronger name that was more of a lead, sounded more like a leader, and
yeah,
Victor just wasn't. Victor couldn't cut the mustard
right. Well, I think Victor Von Doom, which kind of leader, but basically a villain. So
because they have Doom in his name. I
I know,
mean, if
but
it was just like Victor Smith, no one's gonna be like, "Oh God, Doctor
but
Smith."
no, no, no. So I grew up with a grandma who watched soap operas, and one of the
Mhm.
main bad guys was Victor on one of those. And so that name has always been a villain in my head
Fun
ever since
fact:
I was a little bitty.
in the Vengeance verse, I just add
Vengeance verse.
there's one of the four guys that spoiler kills Vengeance in the book in the first and second issue. Is that when he dies?
Gasp. Yep.
Yes. One of them's name is Victor.
See, the bad guy. Bad guy
Bad guy.
name.
Do you know
Yeah.
any good guy Victors? I don't. I don't now that I'm thinking about it.
I can't think of any.
Vic Stone? Victor Stone, that's a cyborg.
Yeah. Okay.
But he goes does he go by Victor Stone? Or does it more like yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thought we weren't gonna come up with one and I come up with one super fast.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. You're messing up my our
God.
whole our whole thing here, man.
I know too much about comics.
Yeah. Well, then maybe that's the reason why your background's going to end up being comics.
It will. It'll be
Yeah.
my comics too. The best ones.
The best ones.
Original geek ones. Anyways, we better get this on track instead of making weird noises like we
Yeah.
always do.
But I do want to say, Joshua, thank you for coming on the show. I really did enjoy talking to you, and I can't wait to do it again. Maybe we can do a three of us talk the next time.
Yeah, it's not gay if it's in a three-way.
Anyways, we're
And
moving on
everybody
here.
just turned
Yeah, yeah, we're moving on from that one. And Nick, you have some cool things that you've been doing. We have a new segment that we're going to do here, and I believe
I've run this show off the rails.
it's
But
I'm trying to
bring it back.
steer us back on here. I'm trying to get us
Guys,
back on
I've
track.
been telling y'all about this new segment that they were gonna do called Nick Talks About Other People's Stuff. Meow,
Yeah.
meow. I don't know. We're just spitballing here. But yeah, so I got sent a book through the emails and the powers of the internets and interwebs or whatever you want to call them. And I got a book from I'm going to probably ruin this last name, but I'm not good with names. Brent Golombiewski. Golembiewiewski.
Hey,
Golombiewski. Brent G. Brent G sent me a book.
there you
It's
go.
called The Boy, the Cube, and the Elf. It's the first book in a book series called the Central Fire series, Jared.
Okay.
Anyway, he sent it. It's like a young adult novel. Um, it's here's a little book overview of it. Unexpectedly abandoned, Nico is determined to find the reason behind his parents' mysterious absence. Problem is, he's never left the space station he's called home for all of his 12 years, Jared. as if it doesn't say Jared in the breakdown, by the way. I'm just adding your name for
Are you
fun.
sure? Are you
Uh,
sure?
I'm pretty certain.
Okay.
As if his situation isn't bad enough, a young girl arrives on a spaceship demanding to meet his father. I don't know where that's bad. It's a girl. Anyways, while searching the station, they are attacked. I cannot read. They're attacked by a vicious bounty hunter. Nico and his reluctant new ally must escape at all cost. Thrown into a world he doesn't understand, Nico has to tolerate and put his trust in a stranger with objectives of her own if he hopes to evade deadly enemies, find his parents, and learn the answers to the questions that seem to pop up at every turn. Yeah, so this book, which you can find on Amazon, and it's a really great book for young adults. I'm trying to bring it back up because I was trying to read something because I wanted to know how many pages it was, and
Mhm.
I accidentally clicked off of it. It's 216 pages. This
Okay.
actually come out in December, so it's been about 6 months that it came out. I will say this. I gave it a 4 on Goodreads. I think if I you can't give half stars on
Okay.
Goodreads. I probably would give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay.
So I rounded up. Sometimes I round down just depending on where I feel in the three in my half stars. But this one I decided to run up. Um, so this book, it's really well written. Britt has a great. I didn't really find any mistakes in it, not that I went looking for them, but
Right.
some and indie writers you can just they're just there.
Yeah.
And not that I can say anything about mistakes because every one of my comics has mistakes in them. Um, but that's because I edit the thing by myself, and I usually try to put it out, and I'm trying to like send it to the printer. I usually get it done and send it to the printer the same day. I should learn how to do different. Anyway, back to Brent's book. The Boy, the Cube, and the Elf. Um, it's like a space opera type thing.
Okay. Okay.
Um, it's got some fantasy in it because obviously there's like an elf girl,
Yeah.
but then it's cosmic as well because this boy's been on the space station, and what's weird is that I'm this space station only has three people living there, him and his parents. I guess there used to be more, but his dad's like a like mechanic type person deal. But his parents like he wakes up one. I mean, it's very quick. The story gets right into it. There's not a whole lot of setup here. Um, and it like goes in and then it's like the next day and then his wakes up and his parents are gone and then this ship comes in and has the girl and then she's like looking for his dad and then there's the cube and then there's the bounty hunter there and then all of a sudden they're going to another place and then they're getting on the ship and then they arrive at this planet and then there's a boy, and then he's got this monkey robot, and then there's dragons eventually in space dragons, and
Oh
it's a
wow.
lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a lot.
Okay.
The chapters are really quick. 6 to 8 pages each
Okay.
chapter. So I mean, it's like you can read chapters really quick, really quick. Um, I guess it really depends on your how you want your book, I guess.
Hmm.
And what gave it three, and why I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. It's nothing against the book. It's just that I'm not really into the cosmic, s-
Space
this
Odyssey.
opera type deal,
Space
and it's
opera.
very,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it didn't just wasn't my jam, which is nothing bad about it.
Right.
But I also felt like there could have been some more setup on some stuff, and I felt like it jumped a lot to the next thing, and maybe just with the chapters being really quick
Yeah.
because something happens in each chapter, but it's like I think needed more setup to it. So maybe in the second book, whenever that comes out, you'll get some more backstory and stuff. I just think that we could put some more because I guess I wanted to care about the characters
Okay.
before, but it's just like everybody gets introduced so quickly that I wanted to care about the kid, Nico at the very beginning, and it's
Right.
like hard to like latch on to him whenever this stuff keeps happening. I feel like there should have been maybe more with his parents and stuff like that at the beginning and learning more about what him and being on the spaceship while they're just him on the spaceship and stuff like that. So that way,
Yeah.
whenever he comes in, his parents are just gone or whatever, and this bounty hunter's there and this elf like girl, like, you know, I want to care about that.
Yeah,
Not that it wasn't an exciting adventure. It's just that I felt like I needed to latch onto the characters better, and maybe there was just lost because of the quickness that the story's being told. But
gotcha.
some people may like that. But
Okay.
just for me, it to because of the genre that it is, which
Uh-huh.
is not something that I'm really into.
Uh-huh.
I feel like that I needed some a reason to make me care more to stick on it because I'm not for
Gotcha.
sure if I would have read all the way through it
Uh-huh.
if I wasn't reading it for this purpose. But
Gotcha. Gotcha.
not that it was a bad book, like I said,
Yeah,
like three and a
yeah.
half out of five. It's not bad at all.
Right.
It's just that if it was me picking it up at the store
Yeah.
or checking out from a library, would have just not put all my time into it,
Hmm.
and it's just because wasn't it's not the book for me. So
Right. I
hope that
understand.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Hope that
Yeah,
makes
for sure.
sense.
For sure. Yeah. So thank you.
Uh,
I'm glad, you got to do this. We get a lot of emails from authors and books and people who are producing new books. And so we're hoping to be able to do this more to where Nick is the one who really dives into reading. I mean, you read over 50 books a year. It's
I read 276 books last year.
yeah.
Yeah, a little over
So a
50.
little over 50. Yeah. I was trying to be like, oh, about one a week, but nope, more than one a week. So, anyways, so this is kind of right in your wheelhouse. And so, I kind of presented you with this and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do this more, get more books. If anybody has one that you would like for him to review, send it our way, send it to our email address that we have. Um, so we're going to switch gears here just a little bit because
Okay.
something just happened tonight that me and you we were talking about it over text and we were like, you know what, we'll go ahead and record tonight instead of waiting until tomorrow night because
Hmm.
it's fresh on our brain. And that was the Money in the Bank PLE.
You almost said pay-per-view. I saw it in your head.
I
You were like,
almost did.
you
Yeah.
almost did, but then you were like in your head, you're like, yeah, he just got onto me for saying pay-per-view earlier. I
Yep.
have to say PLE. I saw your brain working there.
My brain, it just kind of froze. I've called it a pay-per-view my entire life. It's kind of hard to switch over to PLE. I know they did. What has it been, like 3 or 4 years now that they've been calling them that?
But it's been a
Or
while. It's
has
been a
it?
while because I mean, you got to think they still had the WWE Network before COVID,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the WWE Network came out in like 2015, I think, is when it started.
Yeah.
So that's 10 years.
I don't know how long they've been calling them PLEs though. I'd say about
Right.
5 years.
Yeah, because I mean they
They
kind of
still call them pay-per-views because
right.
didn't they have them when they had the network? Wasn't it on both? Like you
Yes.
could,
Yep.
okay.
You could either buy the pay-per-view or you could watch it and do the $10 a month, for the or 9.99 as they, push down our throats
I
for
remember those
months on
good
end.
times.
Oh gosh. But
Good times.
anyways, so they had tonight not a single main event have title in the entire card. We got one singles title match.
Too.
Was it two? Oh, that's
Because
right. Because there was
because they threw Doms on there at the
that's
last minute.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they had the two IC titles. They had the women's and the men's IC titles for that, which I actually was okay with the Lyra and Becky match. It was good. We have seen that, This is the third time that we've seen them face each other in recent times. So it was like, okay, I'm kind of done with this. I like the way they ended it. I kind of wish they would have kept it on Lyra, but it makes sense to give it to Becky for the next uh over here repping your dad shirt. Anyways, but it was kind of cool to see them kind of pass that along. But I was very upset with the men's ladder match, and then we'll talk about the main event after that.
So here's the rundown, guys. The first match was the women's ladder match for the Money in the Bank, which we had Naomi,
Mm-hmm.
Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley, Julia,
Uh-huh.
Roxanne Perez,
Yep.
and Stephanie Vecchier.
Yes. And I was okay with the winner on this one. I really was.
I knew you were gonna
Naomi,
be.
yeah. I like her new character that she has going on. So, this is going to be interesting to see. Um, I'm always going to be, like I said before, I'm always going to simp for Alexa Bliss. But, I was totally fine with Naomi winning this.
I think a missed opportunity not to let Rhea Ripley win to call her mommy in the bank.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I mean, Alexa Bliss would have been cool. I thought they were going to let Rhea win just because of that,
Yeah.
just to call her mommy in the bank,
Yeah.
because WWE likes to, like so when Damian Priest was senior money in the bank,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
He was.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nicknames that they've given other people. I can't remember right now.
Well,
Um,
a lot of them had just like custom briefcases, like when Damian Sandow had it, it was like a leather bound briefcase,
right.
and stuff. But which that sucked.
Remember, didn't Brock's like have like speaker looking things? And
It
remember that
did.
one time
Yeah, it
he
was
was
like a
pretending like
boombox. Yeah.
he was listening like a boombox?
Yeah, I love that. That was great.
Oh, that was when Brock was funny.
Oh, I
Oh, good
guess
times.
Lil Wayne talks about him in some lyrics in like his new album about
Who?
Brock
Brock?
Lesnar. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard some bad things about that album.
Have you really?
It's getting
Yeah.
trashed.
Yeah. Is this Carter 4? Is it?
Six,
Is it 6?
six,
Okay, 6.
six.
I'm behind, man.
I thought he was going to retire after five, but
Yeah.
okay. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about the pay-per-view. So Naomi won, and I knew you were going to be happy with that, but it makes sense. Does that Naomi winning automatically mean that Jade is going to end up beating Tiffy for the title pretty soon? Probably SummerSlam.
I would think so.
I'm
Um,
a SummerSlam. I'm calling Jade beats Tiffy for the title, and then Naomi cashes in on her and wins and ruins, or she loses her cash in,
yeah.
which would be the first time that a woman, because
Right.
they harp
They
on this every
pushed
year.
that tonight when they were talking about it.
They
Yeah.
said 10. This is the that 100%
Yep.
cash in for the women.
Yep. 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 And so I could definitely see that happening. At SummerSlam. We also were told tonight that WrestleMania is going to be in Vegas again. You
Ugh.
know, yeah, I'm like that. I'm seeing my chances of it coming to Memphis slowly, falling away and not going to happen now
Well,
because
because next year they're going to do New Orleans, and then it's going to end up being
Dallas again.
well, yeah, is that Dallas soon?
I
No,
don't
and then
know.
it's got to be in Indianapolis. They're gonna have a WrestleMania
Yeah,
because they signed that contract thing to have, all
yep,
the major ones there within
right,
so many years. So
right.
it'll do that. Dallas wouldn't be too far.
How long do you think it'll be before we get a WrestleMania Riyadh?
Oh God, I just don't know. I mean, it on a business situation, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just I wouldn't have been surprised if that was next year.
right.
So I
Yeah,
mean, I wouldn't have been surprised.
I
I
you
feel
know
like that would be such a dumb thing to do,
yeah.
but at the same time, they would probably sell. I just feel like it would be a slap in the face to, you know, American fans. But I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I
I
don't know.
mean, I would rather see a WrestleMania in London or even in, another country who's known for having some of the best crowds, kind of like you got your Philly crowds and stuff, but London is very well known for the crowds that they have there,
Mhm.
England in general, and so I wouldn't mind seeing a WrestleMania there, seeing a WrestleMania in Europe, but they go where the money is, and so
Unfortunately,
even though everybody was already saying, yeah, it's going to be in Vegas again, part of me was like, is this the year that they're going to announce Riyadh? Because, they had a big thing talking about Riyadh season on tonight. So I was kind of wondering if that was going to happen.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, but then on the just moving on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Then we ended up having a match that got thrown in there last minute from today. Dom took on Octagon Jr. from AAA. In case you didn't know, WWE bought AAA. They
Right.
just announced it recently, and they had the Worlds Collide event where they had today.
Yeah.
on the YouTube page. You could watch AAA versus WWE in a lot of
Yep.
their matches, or um, and so that got thrown in there. I feel like that was just like it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just like, hey guys, look,
Yeah.
we got AAA people. Like here you go.
It's not making a lot of sense the way they're doing this. There's no buildup, no anticipation. This isn't like where you would see people when you think of Worlds Collide, I would think that would be more NXT and TNA,
Yeah.
right now, because there's so much crossover between the two of them. Whereas this one was kind of thrown together and I
There was
didn't
not a lot of build up for it, and there
no,
was
there
not a lot
wasn't.
of you didn't get a lot of build up to it, a lot of marketing for it. It was
Right.
just it, it it's way different than what AEW does with their New Japan Forbidden Door
Yeah.
pay-per-views,
Yeah.
which there's tons of build up for that. So
Right.
this is just I don't know. I mean, it was just TKO just throwing away money, just showing what they can do and get some money. I mean, just I don't know.
Yeah.
The less I can say about it, the better. I don't.
Right, right. Well, let's just go ahead and let's move on to the men's Money in the Bank match.
Did we? Well,
We
I
talked
guess you
about the
already mentioned
Becky and
Becky and
Lyra.
the
Yeah,
thing. Made sense that Becky won.
it did. It did. But let's talk about that next one. I
Men's
had to
Money in the
eat
Bank. You
crow.
want me? Men's Money in the Bank,
Yeah,
which was Seth Rollins, LA Knight, Andrade, Penta,
El Grande
Solo,
Americano.
and Solo Sikoa.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, and we talked about beforehand, and I was like, "You think LA Knight's gonna get it?" And he's like, "I mean, I could see it.
yeah,
It's pretty likely." And
yeah,
what was it? And then you said the most less likely is Seth Rollins.
yeah. I did.
How did that
But
turn out?
okay, let me explain why I said that though, because Money in the Bank has always been known to bring up a star. You got to think that's the first time CM Punk ever won a world title in WWE was that.
Edge, I think, also, right? Wasn't he the
Edge,
first Money in the
yes,
Bank
he was the
winner
first
and the
Money in
first
the
time?
yes. That's how a lot of them have won their first big title from that. Seth doesn't need this, he
Hmm.
has all these titles underneath him. He has all these things going on. He has uh, uh, a crew, that can get him to that point, And so it just did not make sense to use him to do that when they could be pushing another star. They could have given it to Andrade. They could have given it to LA Knight because LA Knight hasn't had that
Yeah, I feel
push.
like I feel like they've literally just told us now that LA Knight's never getting out of the mid card.
Yeah.
I feel like
Uh,
that's what I told him.
yeah. We did say that if El Grande won, that we would riot.
Well, there
So
was for a minute, I was like,
I thought it was going to happen, dude.
when he did the with the LA Knight threw him on the ladder or whatever,
Yeah.
and then he climbed up the ladder, then they pushed a little ladder. By the way, did you see Seth help him move the ladder
I
towards the
did.
other
Yeah.
ladder?
I did.
Anyway, and then he climbed up the ladder and he headbutted Penta. I was like, I
Uh-huh.
swear to God, if
Yeah.
he freaking grabs his briefcase, I am turning this show off. I'm going to bed, and
Yeah.
I'm not talking to anyone for the rest of the night.
We wouldn't be doing this right now. So,
No, I
yeah.
wouldn't have. I don't like it was.
Yeah.
But yep, Seth won. I mean, like the thing is that what did I tell you though? Seth. I said that Seth winning is like the most. He's
Logical.
such the most logical one that it wouldn't happen. I just said that. I was trying to speak it into existence, but in my head,
Yeah.
I was like, he is the most logical one just because it's fucking Seth.
Did, okay, so I knew that was going to happen with Jacob, though. I mean,
Oh
after
yes, that was the best part was
it
Fatu
was,
turning
yeah,
on Solo.
yeah. I hate you. Yeah,
I hate you, Solo. I
yeah,
was like,
that was,
yeah.
yeah. Man, the way he moves. And one other thing, okay, nothing against Braun Breaker, but can we get past spearing somebody through the barricade? They do that too much now. It's not a big spot anymore. It's almost like a super kick now.
But his
Uh,
spears do look bad. Like his spears look like he's killing someone.
they do,
When
yeah,
he speared El Grande, whenever he came down the ramp, I was like,
yeah.
pretty sure he just broke that dude in half.
But that looked more impressive than whenever he speared. Who was it that he speared through the um through the barricade?
I don't know. Tonight, I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I don't remember who it was. He speared somebody through the barricade, and I was
Probably
like,
Andrade.
okay, cool. No, I don't think it was
No,
Andrade.
Andrade got the tsunami. Probably the LA
Right?
Knight then, right?
No,
Or Penta.
it was one of the guys that came out for Seth,
Oh, geez.
or not for
No,
Seth, not for Seth.
for
The
Solo.
For
Oh
Solo.
yeah,
What's
it's
his name? The
not
new guy.
Fatu, the JC Mateo.
Yeah, Mateo. Yeah. It was him. And just for some reason, I was like, oh, they're about to do this. Like you could see it being set up. And I remember when they first started having that move to where people would spear somebody through the barricade, it was like, okay, that's pretty cool. It
It happens
looks
every
rough.
PLE now. It
It
happens
does.
everyone.
And so it's just too much, maybe
And it's
dial it
always
back.
Braun. It's always
Yeah.
Braun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
So
Roman for a bit.
it was Roman for a bit. Um, I don't think, did Brock do it a few times too? I think maybe.
I don't think so.
Did he not? Or maybe somebody
No,
speared him through it. I don't know, something like that.
probably Roman.
Yeah, probably Roman. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, but so it's that part. I'm just like, okay, that's enough. We've seen that enough. Leading
Anyway,
into
Seth
yeah,
winning basically means that uh CM Punk probably is going to win the title maybe at SummerSlam even, and then Seth cashes in on him or sometime. I feel like it'll be Punk wins the title,
I
and it's
thought
like
Punk was gonna come out whenever when he was up there. I thought I was just
I
waiting for the
I
static to
was waiting for
happen.
two, but like
Yeah,
I said, they wouldn't have interference from two different people
right,
in one match.
right.
It doesn't logically make sense, and since they had Jacob come out, then or Jacob and JC Mateo come out,
Yeah,
wasn't I already knew that CM Punk, even though it made sense, but I was
yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, and
anyways.
then you
But then the
said that
last
about Roman. Is Roman going to come out too? And I was like, is he even going to stay with WWE?
is kind of who knows, who knows, who
Who
knows.
knows?
But last match,
Last
uh,
match
Bliss match, which was kind of boring, to me. Oh,
until the
should have
end.
been until the
Yeah,
very end.
yeah.
Should have been on a
Raw.
Raw,
Yeah,
which was Cody and Jay versus Logan and John Cena. Oh,
yeah,
look, John Cena. I was like, it was just they kept Jay away from Cody for so long and just were not doing like big moves to him, and there was a lot
right,
of just
right.
pushing and just I was just like, oh my God, just please. And I was like, and then like when they were, and I texted you whenever the crowd was going, you can't wrestle, and then a bunch of people were going,
Yes,
yes,
they
he can,
can.
and I was
Yeah.
like, yes, he can. Can he though? Can he though?
My wife even commented on said his skin looks weird. John Cena's
John
like
Cena looks like he's wasting away.
yeah, I don't know. It's all veiny and pasty, but
He does look uber white right now.
yeah, yeah.
He's
But
starting to look like Sheamus.
I had a thought. Do you know who this would have planned this match and where it would have been? This match looked like a Teddy Long special on Friday Night SmackDown.
Look here,
Tag
player.
team match, All it
And
needed was
then
the
you
Undertaker.
gonna fight the Undertaker.
Exactly.
Undertaker retired years ago, player. But hey, even though match kind of sucked,
Yeah.
the best part, and which was crazy,
And confusing.
uh, and confusing,
Yeah.
was at the very end.
Yep.
And then like John and Cody were in the ring, and then all of a sudden a guy tackles John
Uh-huh.
in a freaking black hoodie and stuff. And I was like, is that Randy? And then I
Yeah.
saw that he had black hands, and I was
Yeah.
like, no. And he took off his hood, and it was R-Truth. And I was like, what is going on?
So I don't know. Is it a work? Did he say, okay, I'll come in and do one last thing? Man, I keep seeing that he's supposed to be on TNA even. Is he
Yeah,
gonna come?
because in case a lot of people didn't know, supposedly R-Truth got fired, and it was like a huge deal about it. Like, when was it?
Yeah.
Monday? Was it this
Monday.
Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Monday. That not necessarily fired, but that his contract runs up in 2 weeks and it
Right.
wouldn't be extended.
Yep.
And then there was like, those reports that they actually offered him less money
Yeah.
and he refused to take it.
Right.
And that, but he like made the announcement. There have been hundreds of people that were in wrestling and different companies, like freaking Dustin Rhodes
Yeah.
even put something, different companies from TNA to
Right.
AEW, WWE, people that don't wrestle anymore, that just tons of people pouring out support for truth and stuff. And then
Right.
all these chants on SmackDown and Raw. And then even tonight during the Becky match,
Yeah. Yeah.
was "We want truth."
Right.
And then whenever it was truth, and I was just like, what? Because whenever they announced it, actually it was Sunday when they it got announced, not Monday. It got
Hmm.
Sunday because I was at Birmingham with
Oh
Luke,
yeah. Yep. Okay.
and because it was June the 1st, and I said, I think Truth is doing this thing where he thinks it's April Fool's Day,
Right. Yeah. We
like
talked
he
about
does,
that. Me and you did.
and
Yeah.
then it, then it was coming out that it was really happening, and I was like, what's
Right.
going on? And now I'm just like,
What is it?
what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they also did the same thing with Carlito, though, not extending his contract, or and someone else, I can't remember who it was. Oh, Valhalla,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sarah Logan.
Sarah Logan.
Yeah, and so now it's like, was
Yeah.
this a work?
Yeah. Well, and
Did they just have him come back for this one time? Did they just
right.
offer him more money? Because people on the internet and at stadiums, like,
Hmm.
whined about it
Right.
basically for
Right.
like a week, less than a week. Like,
Yeah.
what? Which seems weird that WWE would do that just so quickly. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and another thing with the Carlito side of it, from what I hear, he kind of did. There's an unwritten rule in WWE of you don't give away, especially if you're in a storyline, you don't give away that you're leaving. And he gave it away early that he was leaving, and he wasn't supposed to do that because he was still part of an ongoing storyline. So everything happening all at once makes it kind of like, okay, now what is real, what isn't type of thing. Because he did joke in his saying, hey, I'm leaving as well, talking about how WWE was wanting him to pay back all this money that he had stolen and all that. So,
Yeah.
it makes me wonder, okay, how much are they blurring that line here?
Yeah, who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows, man?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we feel about Money in the Bank. It was pretty
Lackluster.
lackluster.
Yep.
It's probably one of the worst PLEs this year.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
really think of anything else worse than it so far.
Right.
But yeah, guys, we've had a
WrestleMania was
great,
pretty bad too, though.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
We talked about that for quite
that's
a
true.
while.
We
Yeah.
did an whole episode on it.
We did. Go back and
But
listen to it.
yeah, go back and listen to it. And while you're listening to that, why
Yeah.
don't you listen to some other shows on our podcast networks, like the Zero to Hero Podcast Network
Yep.
and the OIW Podcast Network?
Right, right. You can find all kinds of great shows on there. You can find, if you like the Zio to Hero guys, Jim and Billy, you can find their show. There's also a bunch of other shows that you can find if you like wrestling, if you like comedy, if you like fan fiction. You can find all kinds of different stuff on both of these networks. Also, if you want to check out the brother podcasts that we have here, we have If You Give a Dad a YouTube channel, and we have If You Give a Dad a Cosplay. One's ran by Ty Tiger, the other one's ran by Cosplay Dude 637.
Yeah, and we think you should definitely support those guys. We thank them for being part of our little If You Give a Dad type network that we got here.
Yeah,
And much like we thank people like D-Cure, who does our ending theme music. So if you like
right.
that jam, then check him out on all your music platforms like Spotify or whatever you listen to your podcast or music on.
Yep.
D-Cure's got tons of albums. What did you say? He's on S
I believe he is on
now?
S now. Yeah,
Because he's
he's
doing albums based letter. And
right. Right. So yeah, he's come out with one for almost every letter of the alphabet, all the way to S now. So that's insane, and he doesn't run out of material. He's all the time coming out with new, fresh stuff, and he collaborates with some really cool people, including people who have been in WWE, like part of the original Nexus, Michael Tarver. He goes by, he's a rapper now called Monster Tarver. He's done some stuff with him. He's done all kinds of really cool stuff. Nick, you've even found him doing some collaborations with some rappers that you listen to, in fact, too.
correct,
But
correct.
he's done some amazing stuff, and we'll be recording with him here pretty soon. He had some stuff come up to where he wasn't able to do it. As we say here, life happens, so we just got to roll with the punches. But we will be having him on here real soon.
Yep, we will. And by the way, if you like the shirt that I'm wearing, this Dad Bod Club shirt, you
Yep.
can get that on our Etsy page. It's made by Stickers by Stasia, who does all of our merch. We have this. We have If You Give a Dad uh, a podcast shirts and
Hmm.
hoodies
Yep.
and fun stuff. Check on our Etsy page. And by the way, you can find all the stuff that we've already mentioned on our link tree, which is in our show notes.
Correct. Yep. And so also we would like you to do something for us here. Rate and review this show. If you like the way it sounds, if you like what you're seeing here, make sure that you leave us a review. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, like the video, follow us on there as well. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple or something like that, then go out there and rate and review it on there. The more people that do that, the more likely we are to be recommended to other people. Give us a follow wherever it is you're listening. Tell everybody about it. Tell your friends, your family, that weird neighbor down the street, all different kinds of people. If you like it, I'm sure there's more people out there that would like to hear this too.
Even share with Rita Repulsa because sometimes it gets lonely in space dumpsters.
Hey, Carla Perez is aware of this show.
She is aware of the show. I thought you said she's awarer of the
No,
show. I was like, you
no,
mean
I
like our
didn't.
merch?
No,
I was
I,
like,
I didn't give her a shirt, but we did get to do a dad joke with her.
yeah, you did. I did. Those were all, yeah. And we should just leave the dad jokes out of the rest of the show, though. But don't forget, Original Geek is also can be found. Our link tree can be found on the our link tree,
Mm-hmm.
and we got lots of cool things. If you listen to this, this next weekend, which is Father's Day weekend,
Yep.
the Original Geek crew will be at Saline County Comic Expo in Benton, Arkansas.
Yep.
I won't be there for the first time. I will not be there at a con. I'm actually going to spend for the first time in like 4 years Father's Day with my children. I got a lot of those. But it's
Get the
down there in
11.
Benton. But Sean will be there. Luke will be there. Our buddy Craig is going to be there, who's not original geek per se, but he's originally a geek. So he was a geek before we were all born.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but
Yep.
check the original geek Facebook page out where you can buy Vengeance issue 4,
Mm-hmm.
Vengeance versus Bullet Shibito. It's available exclusively on our Facebook shop page,
Right. Right.
mainly because I can't figure out how to get it anywhere else.
Yeah. Man, that was
There's-
funny how you're like, oh, I got it figured out. And I was like, it's only got one cover there. And you're like, what? Yes.
it took a minute. It took a
It
minute.
did. It did. It did. But yeah, you said something, and
I did.
you did, and you said we didn't have anything else on the show, but that's not true. In fact, the book that you were talking about inspired me. You heard me ask this question whenever you told me the name of the book. What was the name of the book again? Can you tell me that one more time?
The book that I read or the book that
The book that you read.
The Boy, the Cube, and the Elf?
The Boy, the Cube, and the Elf, which leads me into my dad joke of the week.
Oh my God.
My friend asked why there's a lion and a witch and a wardrobe. And I said, it's none of your business.
Okay.
Yep.
Um,
All right. Well,
That was a thing.
it was a thing. So we love you guys.
We do.
hope you have a wonderful week. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
What else would you even wanna listen
None of your
to?
business. That's right.
It's old news if you give a dad a podcast, then it would be of you to give it a spin or two, or go to your room. I'm in my room grounded, but I got a podcast on. He calls us beautiful people, then tell